With all our construction done, it's time to put up all the little extras to make the treehouse unique. First up is our zipline. In reality, our zipline actually was the first thing that we put up before the treehouse because there was a back order on pressure treated lumber. So you'll see the treehouse in this video is in different stages of construction while we're explaining the zipline. We ended up going with a 100-foot Chetco kit. It had a good weight capacity, the price was right, and the 100 feet of cable was more than enough than we needed for our 80-foot distance. I had also purchased from the same supplier a carabiner with a high weight capacity and a screw lock so that we could change the attachment that's hanging from the trolley. Whatever kit you go with will have its own instructions, but for us, ours starts with an anchor at the low end, then a turnbuckle to tighten it and add tension, a stop block to make sure you don't go past where you want to go past, the trolley, and then on the high end, an anchor with these 3 cable clamps. And here you can see a lot of those components installed in our actual woods. Because the zipline was actually the first thing we installed, we hadn't realized yet that we planned on making some YouTube videos. And so there are parts of installing the zipline that I didn't catch on camera, like actually hanging the cable. But essentially the way we did is we wrapped it around the high anchor after doing the low anchor, and then used a ratcheting tie strap to tighten it, and then installed the 3 cable clamps on the high end. You can see those blocks that are between the cable and the tree. That's to protect the tree from getting damaged. They sell something for that purpose, but they seem to be a little bit too expensive for what they are in my opinion, so I had some old 2x4 pieces with notches already pre-cut. So I just cut blocks out and used that to keep the cable off of the tree. Because our zipline was done before the treehouse, I hung a rope from the trolley and then tied on a old plastic swing to the rope so that the kids had something to use. The manufacturer recommends a 3% drop for this zipline, and we did some math and estimated a 3% drop, but after we got our hands on a laser level to check it, it turns out we were at more of a 6% drop. Even though we found that out, we decided not to change it. Number one, it was a pain to hang this cable and we didn't want to do it again. And number two, the kids really liked the speed of a 6% drop. The problem was that they were hitting the end faster than is probably safe because it was a 6% grade instead of a 3%, so we had to look at installing a brake. Now they sell one on the website we got the kit from, but I was not happy about the price tag, so we decided to make something. So we decided we were going to try to make what they sell, but using mostly scrap pieces and some hardware. So we started by cutting a scrap piece of 4x4 in half, and then drilling a hole through the center. That's where the cable was going to go. And then drilling 4 holes for the pieces of hardware that are going to hold the block together. 2 of the holes get filled with bolts with washers and nuts, and the other 2 get filled with bolts with eye holes on the end. Cool. And when we're done, we had a block that looked like this, hole through the middle for the cable, 2 eye holes, 1 on each side, and then bolts in the other ones to hold it all together. Then we bought some bulk 1/2-inch bungee cord and some hog rings and hog ring pliers. You want to make sure your hog rings, if you go this route, are big enough to fit 2 widths of your bungee cord. What you're going to do is loop it back on itself and then use one of those hog rings to clamp it and hold the loop in place.
Pull that out.
A few other pieces of hardware, 4 quick connect links and 2 lag screws with loops on the end. That combined with the bungee cord and the block that we made is everything we need for our brake. Back out in the woods, we chose a tree that was about 6 feet from the end of the zip line and about 3 or 4 feet off the zip line. and then installed one of our lag screws with the loop on the end. Once that's secure, we installed the bungee cord with the quick connect link onto that lag screw that we had just installed into the tree. On the other end of our bungee cord, we went and installed the other quick connect link, and this is going to end up going on to our main block that's going to be on the line itself. We unscrewed the hardware from the block so that we could split it back in half, and went up to our line and put it on either side and then screwed the hardware back in. If you had the foresight to put this on before you even hung your cable, you could just not even split the 4x4 in half. But this is nice because it allows us to remove this for the winter and store it indoors so that it doesn't rot out or rust or sit on the line and cause the line to rust. Once it's back installed, then we just connect our bungee to one of the eye hooks on the block and then give it a test. It worked exactly as it should, but I was a little nervous that these bungees are still fresh, and this is only a 50-pound child, and we got that close to the block, so we decided to go ahead and install the second bungee just to be safe for when adults go or once these bungees get stretched out a little bit. If possible, you want to cut these things with a hot knife. In our case, we don't have a hot knife, so we just used an old soldering iron that I had laying around, and that did the job pretty well. Then we just repeated the process like we did for our first bungee, and we had a double bungee brake blocking system on our Zipline. Now for the moment of truth to see if this stops an adult before I hit the stop block at the end. After that, everybody wanted to give it a try. We even rigged up the baby swing so the little guy could get in on it. More, yeah! Once the treehouse was built, I just had to put a new rope on and raise the plastic seat up to the treehouse height by just tying a knot higher up on the rope. For where the rope joins the trolley, I just tied a simple knot and then used some hog ties to secure it so it doesn't slip. With that last modification, our Zipline was pretty much done. We had also got some hardware to create a pulley system. We didn't want the kids to have to worry about carrying things that they wanted in the treehouse up and down the relatively steep ladder, so we thought this would be a nice way to get some things up there, and it's just kind of neat. So step one, we installed the rope cleat. This is what the rope is going to tie off to. Then above the rope cleat, we put a lag bolt with an eye hole in it. So that's so the rope runs up the side of the wall as opposed to kind of cutting across the air. This kind of keeps it out of the way. And then lastly, out on the end of one of our purlins, where it overhangs the deck railing by a little bit, drilled a hole and installed a lag bolt with a hook on it. And then this is what our pulley is going to hang from. just tied a cheap carabiner to the end of some nylon rope about the thickness of clothesline, and then ran the free end through the pulley, then down through the eye hole up on the wall, and then lastly down to the cleat and tie it off there. Then we have a working pulley system to haul some things up into the treehouse and down with, like the little guy's swing, for example. Here we go.
Yeah.
So exciting.
You ready?
Yeah.
Okay. We also installed just a little bit of shelving, nothing major, just some scrap pieces of 2x4 that we put between the studs, and then underneath just some scrap pieces of 2x2 to serve as a support, and then ran a bungee cord between a couple of nails just to hold everything in place. We also threw up a couple of utility hooks to hold things like brooms and helmets. The girls wanted a broom up there so that they could keep everything clean. Last but not least, when we were putting up the treehouse, we had to cut down a small tree because it was right in our way. And the girls had said that eventually they wanted to build something with that tree as kind of an homage to having had cut it down. So we decided to make a table out of the trunk. I used a chainsaw to kind of shave off the sides to make a flat space, and then just with some scrap pieces of 2x10 that I had from a previous part of the project, we used that to make legs. And then some scrap pieces of 2x2 to support the plywood tabletop, and this was the finished product. And the whole thing was made from scraps from our project except for the 4 little slider feet that I nailed into the legs so it could slide on the deck easier. And that'll about do it for now. I'm sure there'll be more add-ons and extra things in the future, but that's good to get us started. You can check out video 9 to hear all the mistakes we made and the lessons we learned.